What is the most important stat in Hypixel Skyblock? Well, it kind of depends on what you're doing, and then I guess how you decide to do it, which weapon you decide to use, and so on, so the answer isn't so clear-cut. Now, there is some more obscure stats in Skyblock, and in the past we've tried to test what happens if we get, well, if we max those stats out. For instance, things like true defense and swing range and ferocity, and while we might not have reached completely max of those stats, you get a feel for what it would be like. Now, when you go down the mage route using mage armor and then a mage weapon, intelligence for the most part is the most important stat. Mage weapons will have a mana cost, and if you use that item too much in a short period of time and you don't have the mana to actually maintain that, then you'll not be able to use the weapon. So basically the more mana the better in that sense. Also, the more mana you have, well, basically it means that your magic damage will scale. For example, at the moment I have 642 mana, and that basically means that I get plus 542.5% magic damage. Anyway, now I have 6.2k mana. If we hover over our intelligence, you can see that our magic damage is plus 6,267.03%. In other words, the more intelligence you have, the more damage you deal. However, this is not the only factor that determines how much damage you do with, well, a mana weapon or a mana setup. Well, there's, of course, also ability damage. Now, ability damage is also going to mean that you deal more damage with an ability, which usually coincides with a mage setup or a mana weapon. And there's various different ways you can gain ability damage. A prime example is the Midas Staff. The reason the Midas Staff deals so much damage is, obviously, majority of the time dependent on how much money you've paid for the Midas Staff at the Dark Auction. And the reason for this is because the more coins you pay for it, the more base ability damage bonus you actually get. When damaging an enemy using an item ability, a multiplicative damage multiplier will be added to the formula 1 plus ability damage amount over 100. And here, if we say we have 75 ability damage, our damage multiplier becomes 1.75, as opposed to the base damage multiplier of 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get our ability damage as high as possible. I'm not sure if we'll be able to max out, but we'll get it as high as we possibly can, and we'll see what kind of destruction we can cause. After just taking a brief look through the ways to achieve ability damage, I think there could be a few issues, but we'll come to them once we cross them. Before we go any further, at the moment we're actually trying to beat the population of Andorra with subscribers. The population of Andorra is roughly around about 80,000. Once we reach 80,000 subscribers, we'll visit Andorra and we'll be able to claim that we actually have more subscribers than the population of the whole country. So make sure to subscribe to make that happen. Also, if you are planning on purchasing anything from the Hypixel store, make sure to use code NITROS, it gets yourself 5% off. You should join the Discord server, it's linked in the description of this video. We offer slayers and dungeon carries, so if you need carries or want to carry and make some coins, make sure to join. So we're going to start off by looking at the pets that we can go ahead and purchase to increase our ability damage. And I think we should probably come back to this towards the end. The reason being is because things like the Ender Dragon pet provide us with, well, all stats increased by a percentage. Whereas the sheep pet is going to increase our ability damage by 20. Now, I don't really know how much ability damage we're going to achieve, so I don't know if this would be better, or this would be better at this point. I just don't know yet, so we might have to come back to it. Obviously, a minus relic is going to be the one as well. Now, in terms of armor, the Superior Dragon set is going to increase our ability damage by 5% if we have the full set on. Alternatively, Wither Goggles give us 45 ability damage. Now, I don't see this being more beneficial than Wither Goggles, so our armor is going to consist of Wither Goggles and then pretty much anything else, because nothing else is going to give ability damage, and Superior Dragon armor isn't going to help unless we have the full set on, which we're not going to wear because Wither Goggles are going to be better. Alright, as for our armor reforges, we're going to make sure we have Loving on our chestplate, and then we're going to go for Renowned on the other pieces. Okay, so we already have Loving. Right, we need to go for a Renowned on the other pieces. Cool. Wow, that hurts. This is going to be like 10 mil a piece, and I don't intend on keeping Renowned on these pieces either. Anyway, that's Renowned on all of them. Okay, as for enchantments, Legion, of course, is going to be the best ultimate enchant, which I guess I'm going to go ahead and put on our items. And then in terms of weaponry enchantments, we have Chimera. I think this is probably where we're going to fall short because I don't have the budget for Chimera 5 at the moment. But I guess we can start by putting Legion on all of our armor, which I really, really don't want to do. Because the 40 mil a piece? Yikes. Plus, I don't want Legion on this armor. What am I doing? Oh my god. This is just absolute pain and suffering. I'm going to be changing it all back. Yeah, we'll see what we can do with the Chimera situation towards the end. Okay, accessory power. Eccentric paintings, that's bizarre. We already have bizarre. That's giving us 5 ability damage, so we've already got it equipped. Weaponry, well, of course, the Daedalus Axe is going to almost passively give us ability damage, as long as our pet has, well, ability damage, which it will. We can gain 1 ability damage from our beacon, which we will go ahead and change. Oh, it's actually going to give us 6 ability damage. Cool. I think potentially if we had a better beacon, could we get more ability damage? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, that should be good. Now, what's interesting is on the wiki, it doesn't show the Midas Staff as a weapon for giving ability damage, but it just does, even though it doesn't directly give the stat. I've just switched onto a profile that has a Midas Staff, and I'm holding the Midas Staff. And it's strange because the ability damage on the Midas Staff doesn't count towards your actual ability damage figure. It's a little bit strange. Anyway, I think for now we're going to go ahead and buy a sheep pet because that's definitely going to be the best way to go. And we're going to filter for one with a minus relic on it. It might be cheaper to actually apply our own. Yep, I'm not paying 1 billion coins. I think that's for the skin. Okay, they're nice and cheap at the moment. 28 mil. Okay, there we go. Right, takes our ability damage to 120, but we don't have a weapon yet. Okay, we'll buy Daedalus Axe. It's going to give us an extra 26 ability damage and also a little bit of intelligence, so that's not too bad. So now we're up to 148 ability damage. Now, there is like a pretty big issue with going for... Well, I guess there's a pretty big issue with going for high ability damage. And that is like... Well, it is kind of borderline as to whether you should be using a Daedalus Axe or a Midas Staff. But the Daedalus Axe means that the ability damage is not usable. So, yeah, I've got my ability damage up, but what am I going to do with a Daedalus Axe and ability damage? So, the Daedalus Axe doesn't have an ability. So, yeah. Even if I was to go down the route of getting Chimera on this Daedalus Axe, I would have higher ability damage. I still wouldn't have an ability to use, though. So it kind of funnels you into buying a Midas Staff. Because even though Midas Staff doesn't technically give you any bonus ability damage, its bonus is still there and obviously apparent. You can see the stats change based on, well, the amount you've paid. And that brings us to, well, this Midas Staff here. Price paid 503 mil, base ability damage bonus 34 million. Now, our actual ability damage stat has decreased. And to be fair, if I had Chimera on this Midas Staff, then that would kind of be optimal. Well, for ability damage, not for really anything else. Something else that gives you ability damage is your enchanting level. It gives you 0.5 ability damage per level, meaning that at enchanting 60, you get a bonus 30 ability damage. These are the buffs that we're getting holding the Daedalus Axe, but you just can't use it. So let's take a little look with our Midas Staff. Wow, 8 million damage a hit is kind of cool. Now, what's interesting is a while back in 2021, there was a patch that changed ability damage to no longer scale with Catacombs level. And I didn't really know that previously it did scale with Catacombs level, which is interesting. Maybe it'd be worth just seeing if it actually does or it doesn't. We aren't wearing dungeonizable armor, but for instance, like our helmet, our wither goggles, if it does scale, then we should see a bit of an increase. Anyway, it only says that it doesn't scale with Catacombs level, not that it doesn't scale in the Catacombs at all, so it'll be interesting to see how much we have in there. Okay, so our ability damage does increase. We gained like 20 ability damage just from going into dungeons, which is interesting. And it looks to be just from our wither goggles, but then in turn that's also going to make our renowned bonus more effective. Now, the damage that it actually does is, I mean, any Midas Staff of this caliber is probably going to do a lot of damage, but just kind of wild. Okay, well, the Aurora armor is not going to bottom, I'm nearly dead. But, wow. I've run out of mana, but the damage is kind of crazy. I think we did, what was that, 77 million damage in one hit? Probably not actually that high for dungeons. Now, something else that we can test, because we've put Legion on all pieces of our armor, Legion 5 increases most of your player stats by 0.35% per player within 30 blocks if you're up to 20 players. So, practically, it's going to be difficult to get that many people stood around you to damage test. But what we could do is just look at our stats. If we go to like hub, well, a populated hub. Ah, my game crashed when I tried to do that. That's cool. Anyway, we'll try that again. We'll see our ability damage now when we're in the middle of hub 1. Oh yeah, 188. That's a crazy difference. So other than putting Chimera on our Daedal Sacs, to actually get the stat higher, I think we'd probably struggle. We got 188 with, it must have been 20 people around us. Chimera 5 would basically double our pet's current ability damage, which would give us an extra 26.67, which would take us up to around about 215. I guess that's probably somewhere around the max that you could actually get. But you can't use that ability damage because that's using a Daedal Sacs. So for instance, if you put something like Chimera 5 on a Midas Staff, which is probably the best usable weapon in terms of ability damage, you'd be around about 188 with 20 people around you with a Chimera 5 Midas Staff. I think. I could be wrong. Now, ideally what you'd want is like a hybrid between a Midas Staff and the Daedal Sacs, where you'd keep the Midas Staff, but you'd also have the Daedal Sacs' perk where it copies your pet stats. But that's not going to be a thing. Now, ability damage is an important perk. It really is when you're going down the mage route. And I mean, I guess a simple analogy that you can kind of go by is the fact that, well, people use Wither Goggles over Infernal Aurora helmets. Now, Wither Goggles is not going to compete with the intelligence that Infernal Aurora gives you. However, what it will do is give you a massive buff of ability damage, which is 45, which is basically going to outweigh the positives from the intelligence from the Infernal Aurora helmet. And also think about things like Reforged stones. People go in for Loving over Necrotic because the ability damage that Loving gives you is basically more beneficial than the intelligence that the Necrotic gives you. I just think it's quite funny that the way that you actually get max ability damage is using a weapon that doesn't have an ability, and therefore you can't even test the ability damage. But yeah, ability damage equals damage. Who would have thought? Anyway, if you enjoyed today's video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one.